solving different quadratic equations within this and answering some different questions about them. Things that you have to remember, if you are creating an equation, like defining some variables, you have to tell me what your variables stand for. So if you write an equation with x, you have to tell me somewhere what x represents. Second rule, if I give you a problem in words, I expect you to answer it in words. So that means write a sentence at the end. Those are easy points. Even if everything in the middle is wrong, you would get 2 points for defining your variables and writing a sentence at the end. Likewise, even if you have the right answer but you don't do those things, you miss 2 points. So please, please, please make sure you're doing that. All right, first question. Does 3x squared minus 2x plus 1 have a maximum or minimum value? And what is the value? This one really isn't a word problem where we have to define, write an equation or anything. I already gave it to you. But just a refresher. How do you know if this has a maximum or a minimum? Right, if it's a positive or negative x squared. So it's a positive, that means it's opening up or down? Up. So does it have a maximum or a minimum? Okay, if I ask you what the value is, what am I asking you to do? Okay, what's the name for this point? The vertex. How do we find a vertex? So my b is -2, so the opposite of -2 is +2. Over 2 times 3. So I get 1/3. Is that my minimum value? No, that's the x when it happens. How do I get my y? So, what do we get? Two-thirds? Okay, so your actual minimum value is the y. Because the max or min is referring to highest or lowest, which is the y value. So we have a minimum value of 2/3. The lowest y we ever hit is at 2/3. All right. We had a question like that on our last quiz. You'll have one on your homework. Are we okay with that type of problem? Then let's start off with a word problem. Find 2 consecutive integers whose product is 56. All right, so I told you if you're going to write an equation with x, you have to tell me what x is. You don't have to be too fancy or anything. I can just say x is the first number. I don't want multiple variables, so the second number has to be in terms of x. So if x is the first, what would the next one be? Consecutive means in a row, so x and x plus 1. Okay. Now we have to come up with an equation. So it told me their product. What does product mean? Product means multiply. Is means equals 56. Is this an equation we can solve? Absolutely. Multiply out your x, so we get x squared plus x. Subtract over the 56. What would that factor into? So we get x to equal -8 and +7. Does that mean the numbers are -8 and 7? Are those consecutive? That's why the sentence is important. So the numbers are, it didn't never say they had to be positive. If the first one is -8, the second one is x plus 1. What's -8 plus 1? So it could be -8 and -7. Or if the first one is 7, the second one, 7 plus 1 is 8. So there's two combinations, -8 and -7, or +7, +8. They're both consecutive, they both add up, or multiply, excuse me, to 56. Any questions on that one? Let's look at this one. Suppose x represents one of two positive numbers whose sum is 33. Represent the other number in terms of x. So I'm saying I have two numbers that add up to 33. So if I want to call them x and y for a minute, they add up to 33. I want to know what y is in terms of x. If I asked you to solve for y, what would you do? So you would subtract the x over. So if the first number is x, the second number is 33 minus x. Okay, find a function that represents the product of the numbers. So I'm going to just say P for product. What does product mean? Multiply. X was one of my numbers, 33 minus x was the other. So x times 33 minus x. If you preferred, you could go ahead and distribute 33x minus x squared. Either one is okay here. Okay, part C, I should have been a little more clear. I should have said, what are the numbers that give the maximum product? So, what would my x's be to make my product as large as possible? I don't know what this is equal to, but I'm asking for a maximum. If I want a maximum or a minimum, come on in.
We're doing our course selection, and on here, it's not giving trading stats as half a year. Are they half a year?
Yeah,
Can you do them together?
Yes.
Okay, because it's not on here, it's not letting us.
Oh, she just didn't type it in. Yeah, those,
But they're
both
half year.
half years.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So if I'm asking for a maximum or a minimum, what am I looking for? Highest or lowest point, also known as vertex. How do we find a vertex? Okay. What is my b value in this? So the opposite of 33 over 2 times, what's my a? -1. If you need to, you can rewrite it so it's in order, -x squared plus 33x. So since I asked for maximum, maximum tells me vertex, opposite of b over 2a. So we get -33 over -2, or 16.5. Okay. Did I ever say that they were integer values? I just said they were numbers, so a decimal is okay. Now if I said integers, would a decimal be an option? No, integers aren't decimals. So you just have to watch here. So 16.5 is the first number. How would I find the second number? To what? Okay. So there's two different questions. To find my numbers, I have 16.5. We already know the other number is 33 minus x. So 33 minus 16.5 is 16.5. So both numbers are 16.5. Now, to find the maximum product, that's asking for the y value of the vertex, so you can plug it in here to our product formula that we found in part B. And what does that give us? Max product is 272.25. So the hard part on here is making sure that you're answering the question. There were two separate questions. We had to find both numbers. We knew 16.5 was the first one, and on part A we said the other number is 33 minus x. So I plugged it in there to get the other. Second question, the maximum product, so I plugged it into the product formula that we had on part B, and I got my product. All right. What questions do you guys have? We're just going to keep practicing these. A piece of property shaped as a right triangle with the longer leg 10 meters shorter than twice the other. That's very confusing to look at. So what do you think I should do? Draw a picture. So let's draw a right triangle. Okay, the legs are the sides touching the right angle. The longer one is 10.
That's right. The two sides of a right triangle that form the right angle are called the legs. The side opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse.
My phone agrees with us. I'm not sure why it was listening, but it's a little creepy. All right, so we know the longer one is 10 shorter than twice the other. So did I tell you how long the shorter one was? No, so let's call that x. Labeling in a picture counts as defining your variables. The other one is 10 shorter than. What does that mean? Minus 10. Twice the other. So twice that would be 2x. The hypotenuse, so that's across from the right angle, is 20 meters longer than the longer leg. So my longer leg was my 2x minus 10. 20 more than that would be plus 20. Or that would turn into 2x plus 10. Find the lengths of the legs. All right. When we did word problems earlier in the year, we did talk about this. What formula do we use in right triangles? If you're in geometry, you should see it a lot. Oh, come on. Yeah, say it out loud.
A squared plus B squared plus C squared.
Pythagorean theorem. Okay, A and B are the legs, so that's the sides touching our right angle, so we have x squared plus 2x minus 10 squared equals 2x plus 10 squared. All right. Are you sick or just tired? want me to turn off some of them?
If you want to.
Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, what would we do now? Yeah, start solving. We can multiply. So we have x squared plus, if I'm doing 2x minus 10 squared, we have to FOIL that. So we get 4x squared minus 20x and minus 20x, so minus 40x plus 100. 2x plus 10 squared. If you FOIL that, you get 4x squared plus 20x and plus 20x, so plus 40x plus 100. What do we always set our quadratics equal to? 0. So let's subtract over this stuff. So I get x squared minus 80x equals 0. So this is like a question I would have put on your quiz last week. How would you solve that? Well, but they both have an x. So if we set those equal to 0, we get x to be 0 and 80. Now, we have to make sure this makes sense. Can you draw me a triangle with a side length of 0? No. Could it ever be a negative? No. So in this case, the 0 doesn't work. My question was the lengths of the legs. So the legs are, one of them was x, which is 80 meters. The other one, 2x minus 10. So 2 times 80 minus 10, 150 meters. So the answer is more than just x equals. You have to put it in the context of the problem. Nobody noticed. All right, are we good with this one? Let's try another. I want you guys to read this problem and see if you can draw a picture. So we have a rectangle. We have 120 feet of fencing, and we plan to use the barn as one side of the enclosure. So am I putting fence around all 4 sides? No, just 3 of them, because the barn is over here. Let x represent the length of one of the parallel sides of fencing. So these are x. We need to figure out the area. Okay, so for a moment, if I call this side y, we know we can't have both x and y. But we have 120 feet of fence to use. So if I add these up, we get 2x plus y equals 120. That's my perimeter. If we were fencing all 4 sides, what would my equation be?
2x plus 2y.
Good, 2x plus 2y equals 120. So I can solve for my y. So that tells me this side, I can now say, is 120 minus 2x. I want the area. How do we find area of a rectangle? Times width. So x times y, but my y is 120 minus 2x. So the area is 120x minus 2x squared. Part B, what is the maximum area? Anytime I ask for maximum or minimum, what do you need to find? Vertex, how do we find vertex? Good. If you need to rewrite your equation so your x squared is first, you certainly can. So the opposite of b would be a negative 120 over 2a, 2 times negative 2. So negative 120 divided by negative 4. Okay, so the area, if I plug in my 30, uh, 1,800. Nobody's going to check me. So we have to answer the questions. So the maximum area is 1,800, what were my units? Square feet. The dimensions are 30 feet by, I need my other side. Remember that other side is 120 minus 2x. So 120 minus 60 is 60. So it's 30 feet by 60 feet. The area 1,800 square feet. Questions there? I want you guys to try the next one. We've done one similar to it last week. So see if you can figure this one out. I already gave you the equation and everything. So how do we find the height after 2 seconds? You guys were doing it, right? What'd you do? Yeah, plugged it in. I gave you the equation. All that other stuff is just background on where the equation came from. The important thing to recognize is that the S here is telling us height, and our T is our time in seconds. So all you're doing is plugging in 2 for your time. And what'd you get? Part B, maximum height. Anytime I ask for a maximum or minimum, what are we finding? Vertex. How do we find vertex? All right, so 73.5 over 2 times negative 4.9. And what does that give us? I think it should be a positive 7.5 because you're negative on both top and bottom. That's our time. I want the height, so then we have to plug that into our height formula. All right, and if we do that, we get 75.625 meters. So that is our highest point. C, how long will it take to return to the ground? If it returns to the ground, what's your height? 0. Okay, so I have to solve this equation. Probably my easiest option is to take out a t. I I set those equal to 0. We get 15. Which one of those is when we hit the ground? 0 seconds or 15 seconds? 15 seconds. The 0 seconds is you started on the ground. At time 0 was on the ground, we threw it up, and it hit the ground again 15 seconds later. Alright. Questions there? If you've taken good notes, you're going to be set when you go to do your homework because it's very similar questions. I'm going to go ahead and do the other problems right now. So originally I was going to split them over 2 days, but since I'm gone tomorrow, I'm doing all examples today, and then tomorrow is just a day to work on the homework. Okay, so let's try another one. Make sure you have everything you need from this page. Next problem says a piece of machinery makes rectangular sheets of metal such that the length is 3 times the width. So what do you think I should do first? Draw a picture. I am talking about a rectangle, so we can draw ourselves a rectangle, and I think I even gave you the information to label the sides. The length is 3 times the width. So if my width is x, my length would be? All right. Equal sized squares measuring 5 inches on a side can be cut from the corners. So the resulting piece can be folded into a box. So what that's saying is you are going to go to each corner and cut out a square. Okay, so here's your visual. I have my rectangular sheet of metal, and I am going to cut a square out of every corner. And so once I do that, I have these little tabs, right? So then I can fold all those up and it creates a box. Maybe I can hold it. Do you guys understand what's happening there? Okay. So we're taking out these corners. Hello. Okay, so now I have my box. Test your art skills here. Okay, let's think about this. This original side was a length of x, but I came in and I removed 5 off this end and 5 off this end. So how much did I take off altogether? 10. So it was x, but I cut off 10, so it's now x minus 10. All right, my length, it was 3x, but I cut x off this end, or sorry, 5 off this end and 5 off this end. So now it's 3x minus 10. When I fold it up, the height of my box is the size of that square, right? So the height is 5. Then it tells me the volume is 1,435. How do you get volume? So if I multiply these three sides, the 5 times the x minus 10 times the 3x minus 10, it equals 1435. Probably easiest just to go ahead and divide by 5 on each side to start. So then we can put, so we get 3x squared minus 10x and minus 30x would be minus 40x plus 100. We have to set it equal to 0. So if we subtract that over, alright, and then what would we do? Flip inside. So x squared minus 40x minus 561. Multiply negative 561 and add to negative 40. Dang, doesn't 11 go into that? So if we did. Yeah. Negative 51, positive 11. Divide our 3 back, so we get x minus 17, 3x plus 11 equals 0. So if I solve, I get x to be 17 or negative 11/3. Now x was the length of my metal. Could my metal have a negative length? No. So I know it's not that one. The question said the dimensions of the original piece of metal. So the metal was 17 inches by, my other side was 3x, so 3 times 17 is 51 inches. Okay. I want you guys to go to the very last example on here. If you'd like to find a partner and work through it together, that would be strongly recommended. So I want you to try this one, preferably with somebody else, so shuffle around if you aren't sitting by somebody, and see if you guys can set this up and solve it. So we have a rectangle. We are only fencing 3 sides because the school is one side. Now, that doesn't mean that you will never have all 4 sides. Okay, your homework could very well have a rectangle that you're putting fence around 4 sides, so read the problem. We have to make something x, so it doesn't matter which one. If I make this my x, the opposite side is also x. If you wanted to call this y for a moment, we know we can't deal with both x and y's, but we have 250 meters of fence. That means if I add up all the sides I'm fencing, that equals 250. So 2x plus y equals 250. If you were only fencing, or if you were doing all 4 sides, it would be 2x plus 2y. So my missing side is 250 minus 2x. So now everything is in terms of one variable. We are wanting the maximum area. Area is length times width. So if you multiply your x times your 250 minus 2x. Here's my equation for area. Anytime I want a maximum or minimum, what am I asking you to find? We need that vertex. So the opposite of b would be negative 250 over 2 times negative 2. So you get 250 divided by 4, which is, okay, I want the area. Is that my area? No, that's what my x represents. So to get my area, we plug that in. And so we get an area of 7,812.5. So the max area is 7,812.5 square meters. I also asked for the dimensions. So I know my x was 62.5. My other side, so if I plug that in, 250 minus 2 times 62.5, we get 125 meters. So make sure you are answering all questions at the end.